supposed to. As we move through this in chapter 2, we'll find out what the body is supposed to do. There's certain things in age 12, 22, 33, and 44 that were supposed to happen in the eternal body that don't happen because of what's wrong with our DNA. Now, our DNA is messed up because the core template behind it is messed up. The DNA template is messed up because the personal Kathara grid, there are points in the body that hold the programs that correspond to the DNA templates. That 12-tree grid is in the body. There are distortions in that, and that's why our forms have been mutated. That's why we die. That's why we get sick all the time. That's where our body breaks down. And the reason all that happens is because on the planetary level, in that 12-tree grid, the Kathara grid that goes with the planet, there have been distortions, purposely instrumented, that block certain frequencies from coming into the planetary shields. When they're not in the planetary shields, your personal biology cannot pull that frequency out of the planet, because the planet can't pull it from the galactic unified fields. By messing with the planetary shields, our race has been stunted in its evolutionary growth. We can change this now because a certain frequency is available because a certain thing has been repaired in the planetary shields. That repair came on January 1st, 2000. This is why, for thousands of years, nobody even bothered bringing Kathara healing here, because it requires the ability to run D12 energy. The subharmonics of D12 energy, which are, if you take dimension 1, remember each dimensional band has 12 smaller sub-frequency bands within it, 1 through 12. The 12 sub-frequency band in every small dimensional band carries a portion of that D12 pre-matter current in its pure form. If the planetary grids are blocked, where they can't hold D12 frequency, those shut down in the natural body system. That means each one of your DNA strands, each one of your Kathara centers, will not be able to process D12 frequency. If we can't process D12 frequency in the body, you are not going to be able to restore the original pre-matter D12 pattern in the body, which means distortions will compound themselves and create more and more distortions within the Kathara grid. What the good news is about all of this is we can understand what happened to us. Now that this frequency is available, we can fix it. And the fixing isn't that difficult. It's running energy in certain ways that brings the natural D12 pre-matter imprint of the Kathara shield back into the body and back into the planet. We're going to heal ourselves and the planet simultaneously while we work with our healing. Now, down here, all manifest this ease. Now, ease is a natural way things are supposed to be, and this ease is the opposite of that. You can also put it together and call it disease. But disease is not just a disease in the body. It can be a disease in your bank account. It can be a disease in your family life. Disease. Areas where energy is not harmonious and harmonic and it doesn't feel good. There's an old lie that's been told here. It's told on purpose to keep us kind of accepting something we should never accept because it's not true. We've been told that suffering is natural. We've been told that the body is supposed to get sick. What do you expect? We have been told to accept suffering as a natural condition for the human race. And if you think about it, usually the ones who are telling us this, even more than science, it's been the religions that have been telling us this. I think if we've been created to suffer so much, look at this God person is must be very nice. I mean, think about it. If God loves you so much, why would He create you so you can suffer down? This is a lie. God, we're not created as creatures that were intended to suffer. We were supposed to be walking manifestations of the face of Source, knowing ourselves as individuated units of the face of Source, or the face of God, taking our manifestation ability and our love into creation and creating it. That's what we were created to do. Because we have been told, we have been conditioned for thousands of years to accept the fact that this ease is a natural state of being, we have been conditioned into not trying to do much about it. When it gets really bad, we run to a doctor who supposedly knows more than we do about fixing us. And, we may remove this or remove that one and try a few drugs, and hopefully it'll get you through for the next 5 years until something else breaks. The problem with regular medicine, which can be very useful as a temporary assist, but when it's used exclusively to try to fix things, when it's trying to fix the cause from the effect level, it's not going to get you very far. And what's sad is a lot of the medical treatments that are used will take care of this problem over here to create more problems over on this side. You will create cumulative breakdown of the system, where if you fix your heart, your liver may go. Where if you fix this, that may go. Because you're taking things out. When they do surgery, especially when you do surgery, you're taking part of your scalar grid out. Every organ in the body has a part of your shield in it, those shields that are in your manifestation template. If you take that and remove it from the body, you have removed a part of your scalar grid programming, which means you've left a hole where frequency cannot process the way it's supposed to. This will create progressive, more frequency coming in, trying to pass through the wall. It won't. It starts to crush the smaller templates below. It creates progressive degeneration of the form. Now, right now, surgery can save a life temporarily, but it will contribute to its ultimate demise. That doesn't mean you don't do surgery. Right now, that's what we have available. However, if you do things like that, and if you do them as a last resort, when you use first, going to the core template and healing it there, it will change the way our bodies respond. It will change our dependence on contemporary medicine. Because I think about it, what would happen? You know how we've all been trained to be absolutely so dependent on having doctors. I mean, we get sick, or our children get sick, our infants get sick, and if the mom, you just won't die, wherever the nearest doctor, help. You should get terrified that something's going to happen to your little beloved child. You get terrified that something happens to your own body. We've been so convinced and content of belief that we have no power over our own bodies or our own lives. We have to find an expert who can fix it. And people spend many, many thousands of dollars and many years learning to be doctors to try to fix people because they want to help. Now, what if something happened on this planet where all of these massive systems of hotels, hospitals, and doctors and clinics and drug companies that produce the drugs we're absolutely dependent on to keep our heart from going crazy or to keep our liver functioning? What happens if the grids go down here and this planet hits a cataclysmic period? What happens if there's no more hospital to run to? What happens to the people who get sick then? This is an argument for the reason why it's worth learning holistic healing. Because if we have become totally dependent on allopathic healing and its dependencies that it creates, where you're dependent on an external system and you haven't learned how to generate healing or to facilitate it within yourself with nothing more than you are going to be in big trouble if this hospital is unavailable or if those drug companies don't produce those drugs anymore. This is why when we learn Kathara healing, there's a freedom element to it, where you can use allopathic medicine, use them together, but you're progressively building the ability to, if allopathic medicines and hospitals and things weren't available anymore, you're building a knowledge base and an ability to run frequency where you can repair yourself, where you can regenerate health, or where you can help others to do the same. In truth, it's healing of the past and healing of the future. Because there may come a time when the systems we become dependent on and just take for granted as if they'll always be there might not be there. It's a good time to learn how to become independent and self-sufficient, and that's what Kathara healing is about. The disease in the body, it originates through distortions. Distortions in the natural electrotonal programs. Now, electricity, tonal, sound, vibration. The electrical vibration programs are the particle unit arrangements of the Kathara grid. As I was saying, disease comes from distortions in the Kathara grid. If there are distortions in your Kathara grid, it will manifest as some type of dysfunction in your DNA and in your body systems. It will affect the chakra. If you have a distortion in your Kathara center number 1, it will manifest that distortion in DNA strand template 1, in the chemical DNA strand 1. It will mess up the chemicals, how they're supposed to naturally be. What that will do in the body is mess up chakra number 1. It will mess up axitonial line number 1. It will mess up how your body processes B1 frequency. If you have various different distortions in various Kathara grids, it will create a mess in the body because the body is supposed to, it was designed to be a conduit of frequency where there's a natural flow of energy from the dimensionally unified fields. 12 dimensions of consciousness, 12 dimensions of energy were able to flow into the galaxy, into the planet, up to the planet, into the body. It was a natural flow. It would go out of the body back into the unified field, nothing again. It was like a breathing rhythm. That was the natural way of running energy. When you have distortions in the Kathara grid that manifest through a body system, it's progressively blocking out what currents of energy you can run. And progressively, that creates death of the body, demanifestation of the form. And what that does to the consciousness is if the consciousness can't hold enough of that frequency, it gets stuck in density 1 and has to over and over and over again enter bodies that have a lower frequency because it can't hold enough frequency in the energy units the consciousness itself is composed of in order to have a vibrational compatibility to get more into the body in density 2. We have been trapped in density 1 incarnations for thousands of years because of these distortions. And there's a long history that we're going to talk about when we get into the roundtables workshop of how that happened and why. But what's exciting about it is first thing when we're really, oh my God, we're like mutated. Yes, we are. Our bodies are. Our consciousness is still pure. But it doesn't know that or act like that until you begin to heal the body so you can bring the undistorted consciousness into the higher dimensions. If the Kathara grid is indeed where the distortion of causal elements, where the distortions are taking place, and then we'll go into the Google body scalar shields. If your Kathara grid is distorted, the scalar shields corresponding to it will be distorted. Well, if that's where what's going wrong is going wrong, that's where you go to fix it. That's where you can regenerate using the D12, original divine blueprint. You can regenerate the imprint for health, your original, natural, organic state of being as a being that's supposedly going to be immortal, disease-free, hold 12 dimensions of consciousness in body, and be a master of mind over matter. That is what a human was created to be. Your cat or dog is in the process of building up to where it incarnates into a human form. So we could learn to do that too. But for you, as a human being, anybody in a human form has that capacity. What's nice about the distortions that we have, there are distortions in the Kathara grid that do manifest into the DNA template, which literally knocks out of commission large portions of the chemical DNA sequences and large portions of the genes, gene sequences, and chromosomes that are built on the templates. However, the original template is never destroyed. We still have our D12 pre-matter template. The process of reactivating it manually by learning to run frequency in very specific ways in specific parts of life will bring that back to life. And in bringing back the original blueprint, it will progressively clear all of the distortions below. The way the dimensions work, you have dimension 12 up here, dimension 1 down here. The higher dimensions have more thrust or power than the ones below it. They also, when you get to D12, D12 holds all of the other dimensions within it as well. Remember how we had dimension 1 had its 12 sub-frequency bands, and dimension 2 had its 12, plus the 12 from strand 1, or dimension 1. Dimension 3 has its own, plus dimensions 1 and 2, all the way up to 12. When you get to D12 frequency, that holds the template for the whole natural structure of frequency from 12 on down. In 12, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So when you use D12 frequency to facilitate healing, you are hitting every one of the dimensional levels. If you use D4 frequency, you will only affect the fourth sub-frequency bands in strands 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you want to make lasting healing and permanent changes and permanent restoration of health, you need to go to the highest frequency that the body holds when it's built on, which is the template of D12. That's what this program is built on. It's built on using that D12 frequency that holds the natural template for all the frequencies below it. Bring that into the body, where if you have distortions in your 12th Kathara sector, or your 11th, or your 4th, running D12 frequency will reset a whole bunch of them. And you need to do it for a while. It's not something you do once and bang out fixed. I can walk through walls. It's not that easy. It's not that hard either. Critical mass is a factor in this. Critical mass of energy building. You can bring in a bit of D12 frequency, but before the body is going to be able to bring in enough that that can hold and become the new pattern, you have to build up enough frequency that overrides the old pattern of the distortion. So that's why the biogenesis exercises are cumulative. The more you do them, the more they work. They'll work the first time you do them, but they'll work even better the 10th time you do them. That kind of thing is cumulative. Okay, let's see. Okay. Healing occurs through regenesis, or bringing back to its original creation of the natural electrotonal programs of the holographic template. That simply means you can heal and heal permanently by regenerating the original pure pattern of the divine blueprint, your Mahara shield, which is composed of electrotonal or electrical and sound vibration patterns, electrical being light, that's what you say, light sound, electrical, light, tonal sound programs. You're realigning light sound programs in your template to create healing. Okay, you want to mention this? Focus on number 2 here. This is basically the same, just that Part-3 units, scalar standing waves, and crystalline chelines and cheline code form when Part-3 units grouping we talked about before. There's the final substance that our templates are created from. And here, there's going to be a couple of words that we're going to cover as we move forward. So the Kathara grid, the 15-dimensional structure, our scalar shield, crystal seals, we didn't talk about yet, which we will as we go on. 5 3-dimensional harmonic universes and Buddha bodies, which are those fields around us that we did talk about. Dyadic point vortices, which we didn't talk about yet. And the subtle and dense matter energetic systems that manifest upon them represent the primal order of mathematical and geometrical interrelationship that primal substance utilizes to orchestrate the manifest hologram through creation of manifestation templates or morphogenetic fields or divine blueprints. Okay? So these elements up here are what are used to create the specific mathematical and geometrical interrelationships of primal substance, units of primal substance, that allows for the templates of matter to be created. Right, down here, interwoven ordered structures of scalar wave fields that form the universal manifestation template of the 15-dimensional time matrix, collectively referred to as the universal Templar complex. I talked about the word Templar a bit earlier. This is the universal Templar complex. When we're talking about a 15-dimensional time matrix and its 5 harmonic universes and galactic and planetary sets of Kathara grids, these are the universal, galactic, and planetary Templar complexes. The one we're going to be using in Kathara healing first, with the knowledge of the fact that it's connected to these larger structures, is the personal internal Templar complex. And that is the internal Kathara grid. Okay, next please. Now, this diagram applies to both person and planet and galaxies, but we'll deal with it right now on the basic universal level. I talked about the Kathara grid, 12-3 grid, and I talked about the shields. The 4 shields would go with the first 12 dimensions. Okay? This is how it will break down. Kathara centers 1, 2, and 3 would be the first shield, just called the telluric shield. Kathara centers in dimensions 4, 5, and 6 would represent the second shield, shield B. It's called the Doraic shield. And that is the semi-etheric matter density shield. The third shield is composed of dimensions, Kathara centers 7, 8, 9. It's called the Toric shield. That's etheric matter density. And then the final phase, 10, 11, and 12, Kathara centers and dimensions, creates the Mahara shield. The Mahara shield is the pre-matter shield that we talked about, the Christos shield. That's the part of your identity, your anatomy, that holds the imprint for all 1,728 of you. It holds all of you. Your imprint for your body and the other of those 1,728 bodies and other time vectors. It's your whole self. You all have this. And it's funny, it's like, once you realize this, we don't use TV anymore. Just go sit in the corner, okay, where am I? And you try to find yourself. When you work with energy, you amaze yourself. You do start to find yourself. You have to realize that when you start to open inner perceptions, and you do start to, it might have been a human origin. It's not weird, no. We're taught to, denounce that kind of stuff. We're taught that, oh, that's just imagination and hallucination. Be careful of those words. They're catchwords that this society uses to make sure we never develop our understanding of the higher dimension of consciousness that we have. So the shields that we have correspond directly to the Kathara centers. This is on the planetary, galactic, universal, and personal level. When you see the Kathara grid, you know that each of these sections manifest as one of those shields. When we work with running D12 frequency and activating it manually, the Mahara shield is what we're going to be using. That's the one I have up there. It has the mentioned 10, 11, 12 frequency in it. That's the one that has the power to reset any distortions in all the shields below it. And those shields control the unit templates. They control the chakra centers. They control the axiotonal lines. They control how frequency and consciousness run through the body. So, the key to healing is the Mahara shield. Now, once you start working with that, there's even a higher level where you get into what's called the research shield. Now, that's not shown on this diagram, but that would be up above here. Remember, we have dimensions 13, 14, and 15. They would represent another Kathara grid being started, the cosmic level, where number 1, number 2, and number 3 in the second Kathara grid would correspond to dimension 13, 14, and 15. So dimension 13 would be like a number 1 in the second Kathara grid. Dimension 14 would be the number 2 in the second Kathara grid. There's a diagram that shows. And then dimension 3 would be dimension 15 in the diagram. That would give you 3. There's these left. These frequencies in the second Kathara grid that takes you from D12 up to source. These would go into the primal sound fields, and these would be in the primal light fields. But first we're dealing with the first 12 dimensions, which take you from physical matter into prima substance. Okay, there's peripheral information. I'm not going to read all this to you. You can learn more about them by checking that out if you want to. I will point out these, though, signets. Okay, over here, there's a word called signets, and this corresponds to the 12 signet star crystal seals. Signets are the core points of consolidated frequency. They correspond to each dimension that represents the first manifest arrangement of scalar waves created through the mathematical programs of the corresponding Kathara centers, which means these 3 points, which were the first, remember these are the first 12 units of frequency that form any manifestation template. These 3 here are the 3 core points of frequency, out of which all of the other details in that particular shield will fill out. Okay? So these are the control sites in each shield, that if you fix them, it will realign all the smaller programs that are part of the shield. Because again, the shield looks like a glittering disk of light that has millions and millions of little dots of light that are flashing on and off at specific rhythms. Some of those rhythms may be flashing wrong, they're out of sequence. Some of them may be blank spots like light bulbs burned out. If you work with these 3 centers of signets, it will clear any of those distortions in the rest of the shield, which will clear the DNA template and the rest of the things that goes on it. Out of the 3 signets in each shield, so each one has one, the 3 core points of frequency in the Kathara grid form the 3 core points of control in the shield. So the 4, 5, 6 go with shield B, 7, 8, 9 go with shield C, and these 10, 11, 12 go with the Mahara shield. Out of those 3 signets per shield, the center one controls the other 2, which means that the 3 together control the whole shield. And the center one controls the other 2. The one you're after is the center one. That's called actually the Gruel. And this is where the Holy Grail concept came from. That's the Holy Grail. The planet has these. Earth's shield in density 1. This would be Earth here. There are 3 points on the planet. It's 3 primary stargates. Stargate 2 is the Gruel point, the Holy Grail point, that has the ability to run the frequency from the higher shield, higher dimensional shields, down in and anchored in the Earth's core. It's the control point for Earth's planetary shields. And throughout our history, there has been a quest for the Holy Grail, the point on the planet that you can control the rest of the planetary grids from. It's been recently revealed where that is. And we'll talk about that in the thing tomorrow, but I won't teach you. If people aren't going to be there, I don't want to be mean, so I won't tell you. Yes?
I have a question. I just want to be clear about this. Are you saying that each signet corresponds exactly to a Kathara center, or is a subset of a Kathara center?
It corresponds directly to it. The Kathara center actually is part of a shield. The shield manifests around this. So, see, we have these guys. See the positioning of them? This is actually this, showing the shield that manifests around it. Okay? So they're not subsets. They are actually that. This is that, number 1. This is that. And what these are are points of frequency with very specific mathematical coding. They have very specific arrangements of particle units and that form very specific energy relationships. This one goes with dimension 1. It holds the whole program for the D1 frequency band, and that corresponds with this one in the first shield. Okay, so these are all directly the same thing as those, but it's showing in this diagram, it's showing what forms around each one of these, where the shields connect to the Kathara. So you see the relationship between the two of them. Now, the 2, 5, 8, and 11 points are the control points in the shields, except for when it comes to the Mahara shield. Now, 11 is you could consider the smaller control point, but the D12 level, this is actually linked to level 1 in the next Kathara grid going up, which would be D13. So it actually has the power to override all of the ones below it. Where if you work with that center and you activate that center, it progressively begins the natural realignment of all of the ones down below. If you work with the 12th Kathara center and the Kathara grid, it will progressively realign and clear any distortions in these, bringing right down to the physical. It's a core template healing process. Okay, I think we can go to the next page. Yeah, this is a squish up diagram. Because the paper wasn't big enough to extend it, but it gives you the idea. All right. Now here's your 12 Kathara grid, right? Your 12-3 grid. Now we see it before, right? Well, imagine what this one looks like. I had to squish it down to make it fit within the 15-dimensional, shape of 15-dimensional matrix there. So you have dimensions 1 through 12 running here, and that's right up to here. This is from physical matter up to pre-matter liquid light. That's your 12-3 grid. Here, dimension 12, there's a double dimension 12 that actually creates, it's like dimension 12 plus 1 equals 13, which is a frequency that takes you into the time of light fields, where you're beginning to bring in the 13 frequency. And see, 1, so this would be 1 in the second, where 12 is. That would be 1 in the second Kathara grid, or Kathara center 14, like that one. 1 and 13 would go together. 14 would be number 2 in the second Kathara grid. 2 and 14 go together. See, like they're octaves of each other. This is a whole other set of higher frequency octaves of this lower set. So this just shows you that there are 2 going all the way up to what would be source, the acadic level. That first point of individuation would take you up to the 12th one in the second Kathara grid, or number 24 if you're going to count them 1 all the way up. We're dealing with the first 12. You have to open these up and get these aligned before you can bring in any frequencies from the higher light sound fields. Okay, let's see. We got something else? Okay, I'm going to point out this. You can call this the cosmic Kathara grid, where you see the 24 of them. Okay. Now, on a larger scale, you actually get 24 time matrix systems manifesting out of that pattern. 24 simultaneous all taking place in the same place, because it's separated by angular rotations of particles. 24 time matrix systems. And a time matrix is one 15-dimensional matrix plus its parallel double plus its antimatter center one, which would be when we talk about inner Earth or inner Tara. The inner is that third set of frequencies that forms a third reality field between particle and antiparticle. We literally have 24 sets of 15-dimensional systems, which means, technically, the 30 dimensions, 15 antiparticle, and you don't count the third one as like a separate set, because it's actually a formation of both of the two put together. So, the cosmic Kathara simply shows you the basic concept of 24 points. In the first 12 you have to worry about before you get to the next 12 and what to do with them. I think, let me see. Okay, page 21 is the next one. There's another written page, but it's worth going through this. I'm getting really close to chapter 2, which is the fun one. At least I thought so. Okay. The interwoven ordered structures of scalar wave fields that form the personal manifestation template, or your personal divine blueprint, your personal template, your personal Christos shield, and Mahara shield, of the 15-dimensional momentum are collectively referred to as the personal internal temporal complex. The internal Templar complex, a structural replica of the macrocosmic universal Templar complex, anchors personal consciousness into the time matrix for the experience of the space-time matter hologram. This is what your internal Templar complex does for you. It anchors your consciousness before you were at one with Source fully. You didn't know any distinction between you and God. You were simply part of that mega consciousness. But that mega consciousness decided that it wanted to experience individuation in the form of you. It had its own purposes and reasons for wanting to do it. It sets the structure within. You have the universal Kathara structure, 15-dimensional matrix, etc. You take on that form. Part of the consciousness of Source separates, decides to become individuated, takes on a small replica of that form that allows for matter densification to occur. And the consciousness that you were before you had form individuation anchors itself into time, into the time matrix, through adopting a small version of that pattern. You wouldn't be able to come into manifest experience if you didn't take on to yourself and manifest a part of your consciousness as the same Kathara structure that the universal structure is built on. So simply saying that your internal Templar complex serves a very important role. It keeps you in time. Without one, you can't manifest. So it's your core thing that keeps you, your consciousness and your body, and multiple levels of your anatomy, into the experience of manifestation. Okay, down here. The primal purpose of human evolution is the achievement of transmutational dimensional ascension and co-creative mastery over the personal eternal consciousness and internal Templar complex within the holographic fields of time matrix. What that means is the basic purpose of what we're supposed to do now that we're in human form. We don't remember why we came or how we got here. Now that we're in this form, there was originally a thing we were supposed to do. There was a lot of things we were supposed to do. There were part of larger plans as far as helping things. But in general terms, there is a point to human evolution. It wasn't just supposed to evolve to a certain point and peter out and go back to punk scum we didn't come in the first place, but the thoughts we did. The primal purpose, which is the original organic purpose that our species has, that any species has, in coming into form, is mastering the process of being in form, getting back out of form, and then you have the ability to be a conscious creator as Source, where you know yourself and you conduct yourself as a manifest, or de-manifest if you prefer, aspect and face the consciousness of God, where you can say, I am God. And that means you don't say, dear God, up there, wherever you are, please help me with this or that. Say, I allow that presence to be me now. I am God. I am at one with Source. There's a whole different relationship when you start to understand these things between you and God. It's the natural relationship that you're supposed to have. Where did we all come from in the first place? You can call it energy, you can call it a Big Bang, or you can call it God. Because in truth, they're the same thing, except they don't attribute the Big Bang to having any consciousness or intelligence, which is an error on the scientific assessment of the times, because all energy is consciousness. And the larger the structure of energy, the more intelligence and cognition ability it will possess. So if you're talking about all of the consciousness that ever existed, the whole quantity of it is quantitative, you can't even quantify it. There's a lot of intelligence there. All right? You were originally not separated at all from it. And in truth, right now, you're not separated from it either. You only have the illusion of experiencing yourself as if you were. This is interesting because most people don't realize, and this is one of the most wonderful things about really understanding your relationship with Source. We're taught that God's out there somewhere. And we can send spaceships up into space now. We haven't found him yet. We haven't found Planet God. Oh, that's the guy that created all of us down here. We're looking in the wrong places when people approach to look for God that way. You're not going to find God out there in space. You're not going to find it externalized. Because where God is everywhere. And what that means in energy terms is we are taking place within the body of God. We are smaller manifestations of the larger body of God. We are collectively God. We're not just humans. Everything. That means the bad guys too. That means even historically, how we have this big good versus evil conflict that always seems to be through all of our religions. It's really a polarity drama. And yes, some people can act very ungodly. They're the ones who have most forgotten their oneness with the source. They can act brutally horrid to other people because they no longer remember a whole frequency of awareness that goes with that oneness or that Christ consciousness, that deep love. It's a mutation in consciousness that creates that kind of behavior. But it doesn't change the fact that no one is ever separate from God. But you can experience yourself from being very separate if you don't have the ability to bring in the higher frequencies through which that cognition of your oneness can be embodied. When it comes down to it, it's really funny. Because if we all came from the same space, and it was all the same consciousness, all the same person, big mega person, right, that manifested all things in the universe. And it didn't manifest it over there. It did it within itself. We're all the same person. We're the same person with the trees, too, and the grass and the earth. And whatever sentience or rights that we attribute to us having because we're humans apply to everything else as well. That means if you're going to pick a flower, ask permission. Not from God out there somewhere. From the part of God that's manifest in that body form of the flower. There's a whole level of respect that we've forgotten because we forgot our own connection to the wholeness. There's a whole level of how we would treat this planet if we remembered. All of our systems right now, when you start to understand the real physics dynamics of the unified fields, which are the consciousness and spiritual dynamics of Source and the oneness that we are always part of, you start to look at our systems and what they're doing. You start to look at how we get steaks on the plates. What if we remembered that those animals were faces of God? Think about it. We all want to become vegetarians? But vegetables are faces of God too. Where do you go with this? You know what I mean? Where do you draw the line that what's bad and what's good anymore? If it's all that. There's a reverence level that's involved, where sometimes an animal that is a face of God chooses to allow itself to become your dinner, so you as a face of God can continue on, and you actually integrate the consciousness of that animal as you eat its flesh. You take a part of it with you. Think about that. What has that been? Yeah, before you put something in your mouth, think about where has this been? This is an energy signature that I'm taking on as part of my energy signature. There's a whole new orientation to life. That when you start to realize the reality of this stuff, you kind of want to run and hide because you don't know what to change first. And you look at society and you say, how can you can't even live here with this stuff. And then you start to get offended by other people who don't get it yet. Or you can. That's not the answer. But that's at the stage of development where you start to realize, it's horrible to do these things. You can't just go around slaughtering animals and breeding them and husbanding them and say, having them break so they make more babies so you can exploit the babies. Oh, this is terrible. When you start to realize what our society is endorsing and remorselessly doing to other faces of God manifest, you start to get frustrated. And you want to change things in yourself and find a more harmonious, loving relationship with those things. And as you do that in yourself, you look around and you become more painfully aware of how many people aren't doing that. And that's when you get anger come up, where you just want to get really judgmental toward them. That's when you remember their faces of God too. They don't remember yet. This is where what could become anger and emotions that would separate you and make you go into an elitist, arrogant trip against people who don't get it yet. If you realize that they are simply faces of God that don't understand, you find compassion, where it's teaching, not cutting them out as being inferior, becomes the solution. Teaching. All of us are simply trying to remember what we once knew, that we were all, and everything is, the manifestation of Source. These paradigms teach you this relationship in scientific terms, which is interesting. Science tells you you have no soul. Science tells you that consciousness seems to be like an interior Big Bang. It just happens as electrical stuff and chemicals combine. And once this electrical stuff and chemicals stop with the death of the body, poof, you're gone. That means you're born as a nothing. You develop as a something that you haven't figured out what it is, but it has no particular purpose because it didn't come with an agenda. And then when you die, your body's gone. You are history. That means you're back to space dust. That means your identity is meaningless, and that you have no purpose other than to survive and consume. This is what science is teaching us. 1 minute to change tape there. Okay. If we want to accept that, think about the kind of society we'll create. Look at the society we have, and think about what created it. We looked at ourselves for a long time as being finite or being inferior. We kind of had two double whammies. Religion taught us one thing: you're lowly, pathetic, sinful, mortal creatures, and unless you behave yourself and kiss up to some guy in the sky you just can't even figure out how to get to, unless you do this, you're doomed for life, and you won't get eternal life, and it's like a really bad trip to go to hell. Oh dear, I'm in burden forever. You know, we went from that mentality into science. We came out of Big Bang. Chemicals collided, and there was pine scum. And pine scum developed sheep, and they developed fins. And then the fins turned into feet. And then the feet turned into apes. The apes turned into people. And they were. Anybody thought of that why? Or how this happened, right? Now, this is on the assumption that there's no intelligence behind this anyway. So it all just kind of happened. Big Bang, poof, pine scum, and up to people. There's no purpose or reason. Okay, I'm going to cut right there so we got time. I think there's some talk about that because of the scientific community. Already? One of the dangers of contemporary scientific outlook is it creates a form of mental inbreeding. You know, inbreeding, like they sometimes do in backwoods countries and stuff, where members of the same family marry each other a little too much, and they can all the genetics distortions that were forever intended. They're usually not good ones. They're usually not improvements. Well, science does this mentally with itself. It constitutes its own intellectualism, and it will get to a certain point, just one other point, and then it comes back in a loop, in a circle. It refuses to go into a way of looking at things where investigations to be conducted, where you can find out more. Because it's very, very bent on needing to prove its own rightness. It's not, it has a vested interest in proving its own rightness in scientific paradigm.
Isn't that two-dimensional? That's pretty two-dimensional.
There's reason for it, though. There's an agenda behind scientific evolution. It's been inspired by certain groups that want to make sure we go into certain conclusions and not into others. What this mental inbreeding does is create a very dangerous mental distortion that's called arrogance. And it's called elitism. And it's called, I think I know more than you do because I have a vocabulary that uses words that have 25 letters in each of them. And I can remember all of them, especially if I look at my book. There's an attitude in the scientific community. And you know, listen, scientists are just people. And a lot of them are good people. But they get locked into this big brothers club where if they don't look at things a certain way, they find themselves out on the doorstep without jobs, without funding to continue the research. If you don't buy into what is being promoted as how science is, they don't want to know how the world is. They define how science is. There's small groups that control the large groups. Our educational systems here right now, they're all built on newest scientific findings. They're disinformation systems because the scientists themselves are not being allowed the freedom that will allow them to explore the things that organically as people they get inspired to want to explore. They're told that if you find something that doesn't fit into the established paradigm, you either forget it and become one of us, or you won't be with us at all. You won't be a scientist. You won't have a career as a scientist. It's very dangerous with that because a lot of times people, there's regular people that aren't scientists, but they pride themselves on having a brain, on being intelligent enough to think about things. They're not like in the old days, people just blindly follow whatever anybody tells you. You pride yourself in having enough intelligence to think about things rationally and to draw some conclusions from them. These are the people that will most likely go to science because of its investigative qualities. Where it's not just going to say, oh, God came down and poof, you were created, and that's good enough. No, the scientific mind wants to know. It wants to know why, how that happened. The people that have the greatest ability to understand the way it is here are the ones that are being directed into a paradigm that will keep them going in circles. It will take them into a space where they can find enough information to keep them intellectually stimulated forever, but it will never show that that fits in or doesn't fit in with higher structures of things, because science polarizes itself against religion, and religion does the same thing as science. The two paradigms don't fit. One's creationism, the other is the Big Bang theory. Both have elements of truth. Both have elements of fiction. With this paradigm, we're being taught that we have come from a primal purpose, we're made of primal substance, that we come in intelligent, and there's a purpose behind our existence. And yes, Big Bangs do happen, and chemicals and atoms do collide and form new things, but they do it by design. They don't do it by accident. They do it because there's a consciousness that exists above and beyond all of those things, that directs the action of physics in order to create certain things that are designed or wanted. And sometimes, because in that creation, there have been beings in manifestation created that have, like the full creator, have the ability of free will. They can create things that are in harmony with the natural physics of the universe, or they can create things that are totally disharmonic. In our society right now, we're very disharmonic with the natural laws of nature. And that's why if we continue on this path, we will self-destruct. Now, we can self-destruct our bodies. We can even blow up our planet. But okay, eternal beings, what does that do with our consciousness? You can't annihilate it. It's all taking place in God, so you can't take yourself away from God. Why then does it matter? What's the difference? If you be nice and you do things in harmony with the original intentions of this universe, or if you decide to take on your own power and do anything you want no matter who you're. What's the difference? Difference in power. You're not going to go to hell, per se, where you're going to have a devil with a pitchfork running around poking you and burning you. Unless you happen to believe in that paradigm. And when you cross over, you'll holographically manifest it for yourself. And you got to remember, this is a dream that I'm creating. I don't like devils anymore. Let's make it April. Anyway, this is interesting. I'm getting a little communication here. Well, anybody that knows me knows that sometimes we're not alone in these discussions. The information that I get comes from people that I've met physically. They've also trained me in telepathic report, which is not channeling. I could channel if I wanted to. I wouldn't waste my time. I suggest not wasting your time. I want to point out something about channeling and about telepathic report, because I'm being given a little tidbit of information here, that some of you are going to have some of that telepathic report tonight, and they want you to be aware that don't think you're crazy. Be open to it, but not afraid, and realize it will not be channeled. The guys that we work with that are supporting what is called the Emerald Covenant. The Emerald Covenant was the original creation tree that this time matrix was formed on, which was the free will covenant with equal love and respect between all races, what it was intended to be. They will not channel information, because what channeling does is take one energy field and force it into another. It goes right into the DNA template, and it gives another consciousness the ability to recode the prior units in your DNA template. People who are channeling aren't told this because their channel's not telling them this. There's two reasons they're not telling them this. One is because the channel's not high enough level of consciousness to even know that that's what they're doing. Sometimes it'll be a D4 being that crossed over from here. You finally figured out by certain ways it could learn to interact with the human that was still here. It'll attach itself to the astral field, and it'll work itself into the fourth strand template. They just don't know usually what they're doing. Then there's others, like D11 dark avatars. They know exactly what they're doing. And they will come in, and they will do field attachment, and they will use you and your body and your position within the planet to do their dirty work. And then they'll leave you alone, so you probably don't even realize what you did. Or if they really find it valuable that you have real high DNA coding, they may just possess you altogether. Channeling opens you to do this. Now, you can channel your own Christo self in a perfectly natural, normal way. You can do it by running Mahabharata current, which you'll get from the exercises that we'll be doing tomorrow here. Telepathic rapport is different. You can establish trans-time telepathic rapport or trans-space telepathic rapport. We can do this with each other, and we can do it with beings or ourselves from other time vectors or other dimensional systems. There's a very big difference. In telepathic rapport, an energy field is created and is put into coordinates, the planetary coordinates. It's not put into your DNA. You're not creating a biofield link with the other consciousness. It's almost like email, as opposed to somebody in your face, nose to nose with you, touching you. It keeps your field integrity, where nothing is invading your field, and it's not messing up your natural scalar waveforms that are in your body form. Even channels that are not harmful, that don't mean to hurt you. If they are pushing themselves into your energy field so you can hear them, they are affecting the scalar templates in your DNA, which will mess up your natural divine blueprint. Channeling was never endorsed. Most of the old holy texts that were distorted versions of the original texts that were given by the founders' races were given through channeling to mislead. And the people that they had given were ones that were having what's called an overshadow, which is a consciousness from a higher dimensional field that hooks itself onto your battlefield in order to have its will imposed over your own. These things are considered anti-Christing strategies because they block your ability to hold your own Christos consciousness in your body. So these paradigms, they want me to point out that when we get into the work that we're doing, there's a whole, when we talk about things like this in the structure, the dimensional system, and the structure of the Kathara. This is a science, but there's also a spiritual reality totally attached to it. You're dealing with consciousness on multidimensional levels, parts of you and parts of other things that are out there. They wanted me to let you know, and the they I'm referring to are called the Iani. The Iani are a group of people from inner Earth that are contemporaries, they're living in their space-time vector right now. It's concurrent with ours, but in a place called inner Earth. It is that anti-matter system between parallel Earth and here. They're us there. All the people on the planet now, in the time vector of inner Earth, that corresponds to this one here, has an incarnation there. We have our inner Earth selves. We also have parallel selves. They wanted me to let you know that they will attempt to initiate just a little hello to everybody who's open to it. If you don't get it, that's okay. It can take a while to open the channels of your own, and I'm not talking regular, they're not channeling channels, just the energy channels, where you can hear telepathic information. They also want you to know that even when dealing with what appear to be good guys, the Maharic seal is important. Now you can go tonight, as you have your books, you can use technique 2, it's 2A, and the Maharic seal and the liquid light cleanse. If you use that technique, you will build 12-dimensional frequency in your field, which means you can receive telepathic rapport from anything, but nothing with disharmonic vibration is going to be able to come through and affect your energy field or attach itself to you. Okay? That was a little like, hello, we're here. And they don't do that all the time. Only certain groups will we even talk about the they, that's on the other end of this material. The they are very interesting because I have met them physically. They have the capacity to come through into this time vector because their DNA is activated and more functionally activated because they don't have the same distortions. And they're making progressive contact with people of this time frame. Select people who are mature enough not to go do something crazy when somebody from a different world kind of comes up and says, hello, from inner Earth. Most people try to, snare them and drag them into a zoo for an exhibition or take them to the science lab and rip them apart and find out what makes them tick. So they're very selective in who will contact. I've been contacted since, I came in. I have the conscious memory of my fetal integration process. I remember where I was before and how I got into the body, the process of being in the womb, the process of being born. And I had a bunch of my incarnational memory open, different lifetimes open, when I was a child. And I thought everybody else did. I learned very quickly they didn't. I won't talk about that anymore. But we all have these selves. We can all establish a relationship where we can gain knowledge from opening to the other parts of ourselves. The Iani groups are a grail-like group, which means they contain in their DNA imprint not only 12 strands, characteristic of the general human The Grail Line humans were called the Magi races. The Magi races had anywhere from 24 to 48 strand DNA templates. The 48 strand ones had the ability to hold the cadec frequency, which was that final primary sound frequency. Frequency is information, so they would be able to bring information here from the highest levels closest to full expansion of the source. These are the guys that I talk about when I talk about the Eoni. Now, we're going to go into the body parts because it's important that when you go when you go home tonight, or go to your house tonight, that you understand your basic anatomy. So you have an idea of if you're going to get contact. Usually when I talk about contacting Kathara, I'll just let you know that this is and I'm open to being spontaneous when they like tap me on the brain and say, "Excuse me, we'd like you to introduce the fact that we're here." That usually only happens in other types of workshops. This must be a special group to have them bring that out without you knowing me. Because the people here, there's a lot of you that do know me, that know I'm not some wacky lady that talks to people you can't see. Even though I do, sometimes you can see them. But people that have just met me, I think I'm a lot strange because of the things I talk about. There must be some kind of level in your own life that, or level of awareness that you carry with you, that they would suggest that I bring out the fact that their presence is there in the group that everybody doesn't know me. All right, so there's something, I get the feeling it's almost was brought out for you guys in particular, because the other people here know me and have been to enough workshops where they know about the guys, as they call them, and that's guys and gals, they're not all, male, some of them are female, some of them are beyond form. But most people that have gone to the other workshops have had at some point some exposure to the fact that we come in fleet. Now some of that fleet is me and my elders, 1720, so some of them are other people's. A lot of the times it will be you'll be drawn to a workshop like this because your inner earth self or your parallel self or your soul level selves in the density 2 time cycles are trying to guide you to get the information you need to take your next step. So it's very personal, even though you can come into a situation like this and feel like you don't know this person from Adam, you're not really sure why you're here, but let's see where it goes. There's a reason. You find the more spiritually oriented you get, and the more you start to just really understand about the way things work, there really are no accidents. Not really. There are things that are allowed that might have been better off not allowed sometimes, but there's always a reason for things. So it might appear that you just happen to do the thing, but there's other reasons. One, I'm getting the feeling that the people here that haven't been to my other workshops, there's a wake-up call being issued. This would imply that you're indigo children, just so you know. Indigo children are the ones that carry the Magi Grail lines. That means you have the capacity to run the full Kundera, which is the Kira light fields that I mentioned, 13, 14, and 15, plus portions of the sound fields. That means that you would have, and the reason you probably were guided here, was because you have what's called an avatar contract, that you came in this lifetime, knowing you carried the codes that could allow you to run massive amounts of frequency, and you came in with that, not to play with it, but because you were part of the Azerite security team. There's one Universal Templar security team here that is trying to get what's called the Christos realignment mission done on Earth, which is to restore the Mahara shield of planet Earth. If you were called into this situation here, with them identifying this like this, they want you to know that you have the Magi Grail codes, which we'll get into more really when we talk about the Magi Grail line races in the second, the round table workshop, because we'll get into the races and all that in there. What it means even if you don't come to those workshops is that you're going to be on a very fast track of awakening right now. Because people who came in agreeing to soul contracts, their avatar contracts, that, okay, I'm going to be part of the Templar team. You're the Templar guardians. You're the ones that will have the keys to the Templar turned over to you. That's what the indigo children are here. That word's passed around in the New Age movement a lot, the indigo children. They're the gray lights that are coming back in as the security team because something is happening on the planet. What is happening is for the first time in 200,000 years, actually 210,216 years, we're entering a stargate opening cycle that began on January 1st, 2000. It'll go to 2017. Now, others of you have heard this already, but I want to get these guys up to par. There has been a major problem that has come about recently. The security teams are on 911 emergency call. And they would like you to be aware that there will be things happening in this direct, happening in your lives. That even if you never hear another thing from me, or never read another word ever written again, there are going to be events showing themselves to you in your lives, and you will be guided to places and guided to knowings. And it's easier if you just kind of flow with it and realize it's part of the bigger picture. Because if you kind of say, and ignore all that stuff, it'll tend to, they use like feathers or hammers to get your attention. Your soul will do this, and it won't be the yarning to do it either, it'll be your own higher consciousness. There's an important mission that you're being awakened for. The people in Ireland here, there's an important mission. Oh boy, they're taking this in a direction I didn't think they were going. We'll get to what we're going to do here. This is just no one wants to go out and film on this one. They don't do this very often. All right, this is going to be a little preview too about what's going to be in the, you know this one. You know how this goes, yeah. A preview of some of the stuff in the round table work that's going to be done. There's a very special thing that's going to be talked about in relation to Ireland and why we're here and why it's extremely important that the indigo children of Ireland start to wake up. The ones who are the ancient bards, who are the ancient Cathars that came and became the bards. The bards that continued the education of the Irish peoples here when they were being repressed by whatever group was coming in to repress them. These people were the Magi Grey Lions that came up before they were bards. In Ireland, they were Cathars. In France, and before that, they were Essenes in the Jesus Christ period. And before that, they were Egyptian king lines that were exiled when the pharaohs took over. And before that, they were the Atlantean rare king lines. And before that, they were from Lemuria. And before that, all the way back to 798,000 BC. They were the ones who carried the security contract on Earth. There are things that will be revealed in the Roundtable Workshop that show us why Ireland and England are so important in what is taking place right now. But there's a very special commission to the people in Ireland. There's something that's hidden here that they've been running around like all that, trying to find over in Egypt and Israel. But they didn't. There is a very special commodity hidden here. It was hidden first in England. Actually, it was in Egypt for a very long time, in Israel. And it was taken by a person we call Joshua 12th level avatar, the one who became known as Jesus and his crew, which included Miriam, John the Baptist, and a bunch of others. They brought this special commodity from Egypt, Saqqara, Egypt, using a portal that was activated there, up through into England. And it was buried there for a while. And so I believe it was, 590 AD, when the Arthur period started. I have that in the history notes, which we won't have the roundtable. From the Arthur period, there was a King Arthur, there was a Guinevere, there was a Merlin, there were knights of the Round Tables. They took this object that was buried, and they got it to the destination that they were aiming for. And that destination is Ireland. Because Ireland holds a connection point to the England point that we'll learn more about. If I go to this, we'll never get back to this. But I just want to tell you what they're trying to get across, because I think some of you aren't going to be at the round table one. They want you to know, and they want you, if you can, to gently, you probably can't just dump it all on other people, because this is probably a very rare group of people that came from Ireland to hear this. You have to be really careful about telling other people about it, but try to help them wake up, because there's a sacred commission here. You have something buried here that's called the Ark of the Covenant. Gold box. The big gold box that people have been chasing for thousands of years. What the big gold box holds is something called the rod and the staff. In the Bible, they were called the rod and the staff of God. What they really are tools that were given after the Atlantean flood of 9,558 BC. The rod was about that long, and it was a technology that allowed for the manual opening of stargates, because it held frequency from the fifth dimension, because it held a piece of antimatter from the fifth dimension inside of it. It would allow the opening of the inner Earth portals so passage could take place. Rod and staff, the rod was a small object that used together, they had massive power. They had the power to activate stargates on the planet. They were almost used to destroy the Hebrew people during the Exodus, because it wasn't the Hebrew people that were part of the Exodus. It was the Hyksos, which were not Hebrew, but they took over the identity of the Hebrew. Why they didn't get the promised land was because the guardian groups came in and stopped them from using the rod and the staff that they had stolen to try to destroy the Hebrew peoples that were one of the 12 tribes, the angelic 12 tribes. The rod and the staff have been something that have been tracked ever since they were given here by the guardian races. They were given so the Magi Grail line people that were on this planet could continue going back and forth between the inner earth portals to go to the inner earth and deal with the more advanced races so they could continue being guardians here. And everybody was waiting for the big party. The big party was when the next stellar activation cycle, Stargate opening cycle, was going to take place. It's been known for thousands of years. The next potential cycle was in the year 2017. It's been consummated. That's why all this information is being given out. The Irish people are a soul group that hold a very special commission, and it's part of it which is to be guardians of the Ark of the Covenant while it's here. It's going to be activated. Part of what we're doing here with the round tables is to do remote activation of that by getting as close to the site as possible. They wanted to let you know that long after this group of Americans leaves or goes back to where we came from, you guys have a very sacred commission here. You'll have to find out what that means to each of you. We'll give you the tools and remind you of the biology you have. We're only reminding you. That's what any of this is. I'm not a guru here telling you how things are. I'm simply a person who is fortunate enough to have some help remembering. And I'm trying to help you remember. You have a commission here, and there are certain things that may take place, because right now there's political volatility on an interdimensional scale surrounding things involved with the Stargates and the Ark of the Covenant. There will be ways that, this is why the round tables are being given up here, even there's only a few of you that get through and know how to run them. You can create protection fields for yourselves, for the other people who are here that don't know any of this, and for the Templar site, or the site on the planet that's holding that box right now, so it stays stable. We're dealing with photoradionic technology when we talk about rod and staff. If grids get really unstable around it, not nice things can happen. They're not going to happen because you're going to stop that from happening, because you're going to hold the field. That's what they're telling me. I didn't know that little lecture was coming through, by the way. I didn't know they were coming. Where's that going to go? It's almost like a news service. It's not the process. That's what it feels like. They would like you to know that you can share this information with anyone you think would be interested in. But being a part of this place, you have in your DNA codes, frequency patterns that go with the planetary grids here. These will be being activated. Your soul level is going to do it. So if you start getting weird, this is really why they want me to tell you, if you start getting weird effects with your bodies, don't get scared. If you start to get energy rushes or parts of your body going numb, like I had my left leg go numb quite often, obviously they're just not there. I didn't sit on them or anything. There are strange sensations that go, physical sensations, that go with DNA activation. Your inner course, or at least you'll learn about what's happening to you and how to facilitate the process. You know, the person you can facilitate best, the barrier first, is yourself. Your grids are going to be activated in Ireland and England soon after. When this happens, it's going to kick in activation of your 11th and 12th strands of DNA on the subharmonic segment. This is going to create all sorts of wild, buzzy energy in your bodies. There'll be ways to anchor that energy and ground it. The first of which is simply realizing if you start feeling strange energy things, it's okay. This is part of the natural process of your awakening. You also may start to have contact of some sort, where you start to hear voices. Don't go running off to the shrink. Just advice, a little advice. Nothing against people in psychology. They're wonderful people. They usually won't understand how mind works. But if they use traditional science to do that, they have a lot of limitations. There may be things occurring in your life that will bring to you the knowledge you need for your next step, but they want the people of Ireland to know that, and they're going to do this with England too, I can feel it, however that's going to manifest. Your bodies are going to start to change. They're going to start to sing a song that's in harmony with the earth grids here. And if you allow that, know the process is beginning, the awakening process. If you know that and allow it, and don't get scared. Don't run off to the doctor for hormone treatments because you're getting hot flashes. You know? this kind of thing. Hot flashes are part of it, by the way. I have had incredible things, and I've seen people go through when your DNA starts to activate. It's like a furnace turns on sometimes inside of you, and you'll feel the heat in your neck and in your head. You swear you have 104, temperature, and then you get really aggravated, just fatigued, tense, because there's too much energy. Your body's running to synthesize it. Then it'll cycle, then it'll stop. You feel better again. This every time, a cycle like that, energy coming up and feeling uncomfortable, getting all tense and kind of your mind is kind of convoluted and you're really like grouchy and stuff like that. It can happen. Not everybody does this, but most people. But then it'll lift and shift again, and you've actually gone through an expansion. When the tension stops, the body synthesizes those frequencies. These things are going to start happening with you. And I want you to be aware of it so you don't get scared. One of the worst things you can do is to run to allopathic medicine to try to fix something it doesn't understand. And it doesn't understand DNA activations yet. So if there are conditions where you start getting like heart palpitations and those kind of things, we always say, well, you need to go to your doctor. We don't say don't. Maybe let the doctor check out your physical in to make sure the parts are staying where they should. But heart palpitations can also happen with DNA activations. We went through a period where I swear we had heart attacks. We have a very strong heart. This body has a very strong heart. And I think it was about maybe between 18 and 25 when I started cycling in those DNA activations. I would get stabbing, like being stabbed in the heart feeling. It would go down into the spleen, and then my whole left arm would go. And I remember thinking, I've heard the left arm, and oh my God, that's a heart attack, How can you have a heart attack? And I remember having EEGs or whatever they call it, EKGs, I think they call it. And it was fine. The heart was fine. And I got used to it after a while. All DNA activations again. It's a whole new business that if you're not aware of it, you can get really scared and frustrated with what's going to take place. This will bring to you also information, what you're going to go through, and the fact that they're telling you your grids are going to be activated within the next, I think, within the next 3-week period. There's major grids that are going to be activated in the country of Ireland. This is in preparation for something that's mentioned in Voyager's Volume 2, The Secrets of the Mente, which hasn't been available for a year because they've been waiting for new additional material for the second thing, but it will be there soon. There's something called holorecords that is going to open. Now, there's been a lot of information at your case. You talk about the holorecords and all that. Nobody knows what the heck the holorecords is until we were given a dispensation in 1998 that went out in the Voyager series books. The holorecords is a natural frequency download that takes place into the planetary grids that brings the higher frequency, just like a person can do soul integration by bringing a higher frequency of consciousness down into the physical body. Well, the planet can do that too. It's a downloading of information from each density level of the planetary grids, from Earth, Terra, Gaia, Iron Antenna, and the planet light fields. This information, when we're not in a stellar activation cycle, usually is in the planetary. Density 2 information would be in Terra's planetary line, and it wouldn't be in the grids in Earth. In a stellar activation cycle, progressively, the gates open, the information flows through. You're going to be picking up information. You have DNA configurations as individual children, as incarnate Machi. There's no remember your Machi. Anymore. You're going to be able to pick up information from the planetary grids that will help you to remember who you were, first of all, who you are, in other time factors, what your job was then, what your mission was then, and what you're doing here. Because what you're doing here now, why you were born, exactly the way you were born in the time frame you were. It's all connected. There's a plan. You planned it in an understanding with your other selves of what they were all trying to accomplish. There's an important aha at the end of this that they're not going to give me, that they're telling you that you will find. They just want the people of Ireland to know. To also realize the same thing is going to be happening a few weeks later with the grids in England. So it's going to be happening here too. It creates rapid awakening. Rapid awakening is a good thing, but it can be scary when you're moving through it if you don't realize you're moving through it. There's, I think, the reason they're even bringing this up, and I'm just speculating here, because like mum's the word here, they're not giving me any more right now. It would be release of too much security information. Talk to you about security information for a second. There are times when I have gone into workshops with no sleep at all, because I was up all night preparing a dispensation of information that they gave me from the CBD plates or through telepathic dialogue that was of security release, which means they could not release it until it was the right time to give it. Because as soon as information is frequency, is released from other space-time locations, comes into Earth's grids where I could access it, so can anybody else, including certain groups of Illuminati here, who are very good at accessing and decoding information. There has been a progressive release of security information right before it needed to be presented publicly. So there was no time for the Illuminati groups to stop it, to create events, to prevent certain people from being there to find it. There's going to be some of this information released now. That this is like what you just got was part of the security dispensation to let you know about that. There's something up, and I can feel it, and I can feel probably by the time, maybe tomorrow or maybe we get into the roundtables, there's going to be more on this release. I just don't know what it is yet. It's not security release, but they wanted you to think about that tonight, the people of Ireland that are here. They want you to think about it, about what it might mean. I'm lucky. It means I have certain things in my DNA that are connected to grids. Yes. We'll learn more about that. Actually, that's in the roundtable where we learn about, about that. But we'll learn some of it in this. I get a feeling you're after some surprises that they would interrupt like that and have it go in that direction. So just kind of take that one to sleep with you tonight. You might just use that concept of, okay, let's find more information that didn't say I'm what? I'm Maji Indigo Child. What is that? Might be a good question to ask. Okay. Can I get that one so And by the way, if you get like really awakened and you're up to like 6 strands where you're activated on like a 6-dimensional frequency and you perceive 6 rather than 2 dimensions of consciousness, you'll be silly like me while you're talking to people that nobody else sees. Because you can see them. But when you get into that space, I suggest only within very select groups of people who like it, I trust you guys and I feel comfortable enough with the level of consciousness that you carry that I'm not hiding the fact that I do that for fear that you will misunderstand it and label it as something that it isn't. So I trust your own perceptions on that. Now, we're going to get back to, actually we're almost done with chapter 1 here. Just going to go to page 35. We're going to go right into page 35. Simply show you the transduction sequence. The transduction sequence, The transduction sequence simply is a process by which consciousness moves into various stages to go into form. Goes from pure consciousness, the source, into particle, particle, reflection. That goes into forming kelons, kelon codes, and particle grids, which are the Kathara scalar grids. Okay, we start with the Kathara 12-3 grid, and work up to 2 other levels called the crystal seals grid. First you have level 1 12-3 Kathara grid. Then you have the level 2 of the Kathara grid, which is called the crystal seals grid. This would be filling out those shields, where you have your first 3 as the Kathara grid and shield. Then you have some more points of fixed frequency that would be called crystal seals, and they anchor and hold energy in certain specific areas within the body. Then the 3rd level is called the diotic point grid, which these are the things, parts of the anatomy that we'll learn when we go into chapter 2. So it goes from consciousness to particle to the scalar grid templates into more complex particle grids, where progressively from the 12-tree grid, the units of frequency that form the shields fill out and become more complex and more diversified, where we get more differentiation. That's why we don't all look the same, we're not all the same shape. And it goes into full morphogenetic fields, or the full templates that manifest a planet or a form or your body. And it goes from there into Merkaba fields. Now Merkaba fields are interwoven counter-rotating sets of electromagnetic energy. They're the breathing system of the energy systems in the body, where they pull energy in and then throw energy out, circulate through the body system, the planet, and the unified dimensional field. So we'll get into Merkaba mechanics when we can Kathara too, because that can be a little complex. You need to understand the basic structures first. There's the Merkaba fields. Then it goes into, from the template that was in the Kathara grid, comes through the Merkaba fields into the template for the DNA and RNA, DNA, RNA templates. They go into the bioenergetic field, starting to form the auric levels, and into the chakras. And then into something called the natal capsule, which is actually like a tissue capsule of energy that surrounds the first 3 levels of your body. This surrounds the Hoover body that's attached to the first density 1 shield. So there's a process. You go through these things, you get up to the navel capsule, then it goes into the manifest DNA, chemical DNA, the stuff our scientists are playing with right now. So this is the transduction sequence where energy is transduced, and the program that energy will take to manifest is transduced from pure consciousness through these various stages and forms and structures into what becomes the physical vessel. Goes into the DNA, RNA, chemical, manifest, into something called the natus. The natus are little rivulets of energy that connect what they call the etheric body, which is really an area of energy that corresponds to the antiparticle double, that when you look at an auric field, you start to develop higher sensory perception, you start to see the levels of the auric field, it would be the closest one to the body. So about that far away from the body, all around the body. They call it the etheric body, but it's really the parallel body. It's your antiparticle body. What the natus do is they take energy from there. They're like little tiny veins or little river systems that run frequency from your particle cell, or your antiparticle cell, into your particle cell, and down into the chemical DNA. So these are parts of the structures of your unknown anatomy that we are working with. It's part of the transduction sequence. Comes down through, goes into the natus. From the natus, it goes into the nuclear core. This is where the frequencies that you're picking up from your interaction with the dimensional unified fields becomes a part of your core nucleus in all of your atoms that your molecules are built on, that your physical body is built on. There's a lot of stages in between that. A book could be written all by itself on the transduction sequence and how specifically that happens, where this turns into that, where electricity ends up turning into chemical translation, and that creates the building blocks of amino acids that our bodies are reported cellular structures built on. But for now, it's just important enough to realize there is a sequence of events of physics that take place, physics and consciousness, that allows consciousness to move into form. It's not as if our scientists have to figure out what might be happening. This is one of the assumptions in science that we tend to miss. Scientists explore and discover, they discovered DNA, and they think they're the only ones that never did. No. There is a set structure of things that has existed. It's existed since creation was set in motion, since the desire to experience in manifestation was set in motion, and since everything happens at once, it's not simultaneous. It puts it in a whole new concept. Where was the beginning? Where is the end? Where is the middle? Now. Depending on the frequency range that you're putting your consciousness into. If we can realize that science has its limitations because it's not recognizing the fact that they don't have to figure out the laws of physics. They're already there. What they have to do is open themselves to finding them and looking in the right places. This information is carried, each one of us carry the information of physics in our body cells. And by using the consciousness to open that information, we can know more than what the scientists are trying to figure out by cutting these up under microscopes. If scientists would learn this, they could make huge discoveries. We give them a transduction sequence. We go from there to realizing the cosmic structure, the big thing, the 15-dimensional system, all that stuff with our grid, goes down into the macrocosm of us, of our little bodies, and what's inside them. So we get into chapter 2. Now, I'm going to ask you, I'll go over these a little bit in chapter 2. You can change this to 38, please. I'll put this up, and then I'm going to ask you, do you want to take any, I don't know what time it is, I'm terrible with time. 9:20? Oh boy. Okay. If we're going to take, I hate when time does that. My goodness, what the heck? Okay, you really, that's part of what drives me here. It was like after 10:30 when it got dark yesterday. All right, now, the stuff in here doesn't have to, it's not going to take a long time. You're going to learn a huge amount of stuff about your anatomy really fast, but it flows really easy. It's easier to understand the basics of the anatomy. The hard part is putting together the universal structure stuff, the context that we talked about first. We're learning, what's the dimension, what's a Kathara, what's all this stuff. I think, since it's so late, I didn't realize it got that late. I was planning to take one break between when we came back at 7 something and 10:30 when we're kind of here till. I don't want you to feel like you're sentenced to your chairs. It'll only be like 10, 15 minutes. It's not like it's just to get up, stretch, if everybody needs to use, a restroom or something like that. Then we will get into this, and we'll go to the end till 10:30 with it. By the time we get out of here, we will cover page 23 to 46, specifically the diagrams. Because these diagrams will speak 1,000 words. It'll show you your body parts that you forgot you had. We'll talk about the heart shield and the imprint for health. We'll talk about the planetary biofeed interface system. That's where your Kathara grid plugs into the planet's Kathara grid. It's an energy feed system. We'll talk about the Hierophant symbol code and the heart shield. And we'll end that with talking about the levels of human anatomy, so you get to know where you're part from. And we'll end today with the 12 human senses, just so you know that there's more senses to go along with all that extra DNA that's coming. When we start tomorrow, we'll go into the after phase, where we start learning about, okay, now we know the parts. What do they do? What do we do with them? We'll start to learn some technique and start to use it. So, let's see the time. So different than the vibration you came from. When before you had access to that, it can be a little overwhelming. So if you start to feel that, even by tomorrow afternoon, don't worry, it goes away. Even if your brain has stopped processing at a certain point, where you just can't absorb anymore because it just makes you mentally tired, realize that by being exposed to the information as it's being spoken, that is a frequency that your fields are picking up. So even if you're not processing it actively at the moment, it is being made available to you. So eventually, between that and being able to stimulate it with the book, you're not going to lose anything. But I'll try to make things so they're not overwhelming. There's a huge amount of data in Kathara level 1 alone that, it can take quite a while to synthesize and process to you go, oh, I get that. Yeah, I can use that. That makes sense. Now, tomorrow will be more fun. We won't be confined to our chairs all day. Tomorrow we'll do some of the things like I said, bring blankets or something to lay on. I was hoping we'd have a carpeted room, but that didn't happen. There is a period where we need one person will need to lay flat, and we'll be running the techniques so you get hands-on with it, and we'll switch off. So there's not just going to be people who don't have to lay down. I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, but it's highly recommended that you participate in the activities so you get hands-on experience of running the frequencies and get to play both facilitator and client. So we'll take turns. But for today, we're going to finish up with learning about our body parts, our subtle body parts, that some of us may know we have chakras, but most people don't know too much beyond chakras because there hasn't been information about it available in time. And when it has been made available, there are certain groups who have made sure that it get to be available to the public because they were saving that knowledge for their own manipulations. This is where Illuminati has come in. For thousands of years, every time this information was brought back and tried to maybe release it on a public level, there would be certain political groups that got involved and grabbed it and made sure the common people didn't have access to it. Why? Because it gave them power. It gave them the power to open their own frequencies, their consciousness, to understand the big picture, and to not be manipulated anymore. So this information has been given here repeatedly. The person that became historically known as Jesus Christ and John the Baptist and Mary, they brought this information back then. As Essenes, they brought it in. By the time it hit the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, which Rome initiated, the Church of Rome, they gutted all of the Essene books, took portions of the history, twisted it, and that became a canonized Bible. They weren't the teachings of Jesus. They took his books out of the Bible. There are missing books, and that's what's sad, because the Bible is supposed to be a holy book. The same thing happened to all of the other religions.